Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in PG Island, Mexico, Spain, Africa, the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And special greetings to the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening. This is our episode number 6 on the subject, the wave sheet and the wave lobes. Let us begin our study on track number 3 on page 75, saying, those whose vision is clear on the truth of the harvest, as taught in the testimonies of the prophets and in the parables, will have still clearer vision as we study the significance of the wave sheet, wave lobes, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Illustrating our salvation and completeness, the harvest rites of the ceremonial system must therefore corroborate both the testimonies of the prophets and the parables concerning the harvest, for all are inextricably bound up together. The ceremonies of the first and the second fruits of grain must accordingly unfold the truth concerning the first and second fruits of humanity. Track number 3, page 75. So, the plan of salvation, according to the Shepherd's Rod, it is illustrated in completeness through the harvest rites of the ceremonial system. And whatever understanding that we could obtain concerning such ceremonial system, it must be in perfect harmony with the testimonies of the prophets as well as the parables of Jesus Christ. For all of them are inextricably bound up together. On page 78, I would like to read a statement saying, it will be observed that the command regarding observance of the seventh-day Sabbath, as well as that regarding observance of the yearly ceremonial feast, is recorded in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, verse 3. Care, therefore, must be exercised not to confuse the one truth with the other. So we need to exercise absolute care in studying this very important subject so that we could not mix up one truth with the other. Now, here in track number 3 on page 85, track number 3 on page 85, it says, wonderful indeed is the way in which God has worked out the plan of salvation and revealed it step by step as necessary. When in 1844, the investigative judgment of the dead and the ingathering of the first fruits of the living began, he did not leave his people in darkness concerning these events. The very first vision which Sister White received in 1844 was of the 144,000 first fruits, the servants of our God, who shall never taste death. See early writings, pages 13, 14, and 15. Now, the Shepherd's Rod plainly told us that God did not leave His people in darkness concerning these events. The events mentioned here is pertaining to how our Almighty God worked out the plan of salvation. And accordingly, God revealed it gradually or step by step. And in reality, the particular object in view is the people who will no longer to taste death. The last generation of men, the 144,000 living saints. It cannot be construed that it's so because God shown to Ellen G. White the very first vision that was given by God to the prophet is concerning the sealing of the 144,000 living saints. It doesn't mean that the sealing of the 144,000 living saints commenced in 1844, but rather all the necessary information concerning the sealing of the 144,000. It was revealed by God gradually beginning in 1844 and onward, or the knowledge that was bestowed by God to Sister White, to Alonzo Jones, to Wagoner, as well as to B.T. Hotep. The principal object and view is to the living saints, to the saints that will no longer to taste death, that all the necessary information, all the material was bestowed by God. And the statement in manuscript release, volume 7, page 417. Let us read the statement that each of the ancient prophets spoke less in their own time than in ours, that their prophesying is in reality is enforced unto us, that pronounced us without any doubts, pointing to the saints that will no longer to taste death. And that is very plain on Testimonies volume 6 on page 19, saying, mysteries into which angels desire to look, which prophets and kings and righteous men desired to understand, the remnant church will carry in messages from God to the world. The prophets prophesied of these things, and they long to understand that which they foretold, but to them this privilege was not given. They long to see what we see and to hear what we hear, but they could not. The pronoun we is pointing to the remnant church, by which according to early writings, it is pointing to the last generation of men. It says here in early writings 143, this remnant existing amid the signs and wonders that usher in the great and terrible day of the Lord is doubtless the remnant of the seed of the woman spoken of in Revelation 12 verse 17, the last generation of the church on earth. The last generation of the church on earth, by which, according to Spiritual Gifts, Book 3, page 26, saying, the woman is a symbol of the church, and the remnant of the church represents the Christians of the last generation of men. And then it says, whom God designs to fit for translation to heaven without seeing death. Book 3, Spiritual Gifts, page 26. The shepherd's rod itself plainly told us here in Old Symbolic Code, 3 Symbolic Code, number 7, page 2. It says, early writings, neither here nor elsewhere, in any way suggest that the sealing of the 144,000 was then in progress, but rather the sealing of early writings should not be interpreted in a way to contradict the sealing of great controversy. Then the sealing of the former cannot be the sealing of the latter. For if the sealing of the 144,000 began in 1844, and if that is the only sealing, then, as the record asserts, all who died in the third angel's message since 1844, including Sister White, are necessarily lost, because the great controversy plainly states that the 144,000 shall not die, but be translated from among the living. The great controversy, page 646. Moreover, the author of early writings and of the great controversy states in Testimonies for the Church, volume 3, page 266, that the sealing of the 144,000 is the closing work for the church, but the sealing that began in 1844 was the beginning, not the closing work, not the closing of the church work. 3 Symbolic Code, number 7, page 2. So, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, when God showed the vision to Sister White in 1844 concerning the sealing of the 144,000, living saints cannot be construed that the sealing of the 144,000 living saints on earth were commencing in 1844, according to 3 Symbolic Code number 7, page 2. And without any doubts, brothers and sisters, the reason why God showed to the prophet concerning the sealing of the 144,000 in 1844, such vision of the prophet must have a close connection with the occurrences in the heavenly sanctuary. For there is no reason why the prophet attached the vision of Sister White concerning the sealing of the 144,000 in connection with the commencement of the investigative judgment of the dead in the heavenly sanctuary if they are not closely connected with each other. But to repeat again the statement saying that God did not leave His people in darkness concerning these events, pointing to our generation, the last generation of men, the saints that will no longer to taste death. God completely provided us all the necessary information how our Almighty God has worked out the plan of salvation. So I remember the statement in 1SR Pocket Edition on page 58 saying, "But now, at the appointed time, He Himself reveals their significance to the very people for whom they were originally and especially designed." And accordingly, one of the significance why the prophet was commanded to engrave the message into a tile. Accordingly, in 1SR Pocket Edition on page 74, saying, Ezekiel was commanded to engrave a city upon a tile and to name it Jerusalem. The material on which the city was to be engraved, being everlasting, not subject to decay, it denotes that the city envisioned is one that will stand eternally, a people that shall never die. And we read several times the book that was eaten by the prophet Ezekiel, when God commanded him to deliver the message to the whole house of Israel. That book represents the Bible, according to track number 1, page 29 and page 30. It says here, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people were found in the book which he ate. The book can be none other than the Bible. So that book by which the prophet ate, that is the Bible. Then we can easily understand the entire Bible, which is pertaining to the plan of salvation. The particular object in view is the saints that will no longer to taste death. They were the people whom they were originally and especially designed. So all the information given by God to all the prophets in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and also beginning with William Miller, and then we have all the associates of William Miller, Sister White, Alonzo Jones, Wagoner, B.T. Hotep, all the information that was bestowed by God unto them, it is for us, according to Manuscript Release, Volume 7, page 417. So, I remember the statement in track number 3, page 4, saying, let us come out of the stupor of presuming on God's grace, yet regarding Him responsible for any consequent issue of our life. He has perfectly done His part in fully charting the narrow path to the kingdom. Now let us do our honest best to follow their end to the end of the way, for the joy that awaits us there. But never shall we do so save in returning to the old landmarks, for forsaking the devil was turned God's people from the way, the truth, and the life, John 14, verse 6, into a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end of which are the ways of death, Proverbs 14, verse 12. So, God already done all the necessary information concerning the plan of salvation. God has perfectly done His part in fully charting our narrow path to the kingdom. So we need now to exert all the necessary efforts to enter therein. In the upper part of this paragraph, track number 3, page 4, saying, in these parables, Christ clearly sets forth present truth as the indispensable condition to the establishing of His kingdom, and supreme effort as the indispensable condition to entering into it. So we need to exert our supreme effort to comprehend the present truth, because accordingly, the present truth is the indispensable condition to be a part of God's kingdom. And of course, the name itself, present truth, pointing to the present revelation, the unrolling of the scroll, the present revelation on this very year, 2020. And I would like to read again the statement in 1 TG number 28 on page 12, saying, indeed, the important thing is not how good or how bad we are or have been, but how susceptible and submissive to present truth we are now while it unfolds. The real burden of our prayer should be that we catch a vision of the truth that makes free if accepted as the scroll unrolls. 1 TG number 28 on page 12. Now, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, the mere fact that the Bible contains 66 books and half of 66 is 33. That is the life of Jesus Christ. He spent on this world for 33 years, plainly indicating that half of the plan of salvation was revealed in the life of Jesus Christ while Jesus Christ was still on earth. And accordingly, here in the Great Controversy, 488 and 489, it says, the intercession of Christ in man's behalf in the sanctuary above is as essential to the plan of salvation as was His death upon the cross. By His death, He began that work which after His resurrection, He ascended to complete in heaven. We must by faith enter within the veil, whether the forerunner is for us entered. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 20. There the light from the cross of Calvary is reflected. There we may gain a clearer insight into the mysteries of redemption. The salvation of man is accomplished at an infinite expense to heaven. The sacrifice made is equal to the broadest demands of the broken law of God. Jesus has opened the way to the Father's throne, and through His mediation, the sincere desire of all who come to Him in faith may be presented before God. The Great Controversy, page 488. And in the upper paragraph, it says, all who have received the light upon these subjects are to bear testimony of the great truths which God has committed to them. The sanctuary in heaven is the very center of Christ's work in behalf of men. It concerns every soul living upon the earth. It opens to view the plan of redemption, bringing us down to the very close of time and revealing the triumphant issue of the contest between righteousness and sin. It is of the utmost importance that all should thoroughly investigate these subjects and be able to give an answer to everyone that asketh them a reason of the hope that is the Great Controversy, page 488 and 489. Now, in the previous paragraph, it says, those who would share the benefits of the Savior's mediation should permit nothing to interfere with their duty to perfect holiness in the fear of God. The precious hours, instead of being given to pleasure, to display, or to gain seeking, should be devoted to an earnest, prayerful study of the word of truth. The subject of the sanctuary and the investigative judgment should be clearly understood by the people of God. All need a knowledge for themselves of the position and work of their great high priest. Otherwise, it will be impossible for them to exercise the faith which is essential at this time, or to occupy the position which God designs them to fill. Every individual has a soul to save or to lose. Each has a case pending at the bar of God. Each must meet the great judge face to face. How important then that every mind contemplate often the solemn scene when the judgment shall sit and the books shall be opened. When with Daniel, every individual must stand in his lot at the end of the days. Now, brothers and sisters, our reading definitely telling us that the work of Christ, while Jesus Christ was still on earth for 33 years, God worked out the plan of salvation. But according to our reading on the great controversy, it was not yet completed, not until Christ's mediatorial work will be completed in the heavenly sanctuary. And accordingly, on the great controversy, page 518, saying, the great controversy between Christ and Satan that has been carried forward for nearly 6,000 years is soon to close. And the wicked one redoubles his efforts to defeat the work of Christ in man's behalf, and to fasten souls in his snares, to hold the people in darkness and impenitence till the Savior's mediation is ended, and there is no longer a sacrifice for sin, is the object which he seeks to accomplish. The Great Controversy, page 518. And here in track number 3, it says here, let us read this thing. Track number 3, on page 88, it says, this fourfold view of the judgment. So let us enumerate the fourfold view of the judgment. The harvest thus exalts the truth of it as a pearl of great price, and reveals that the depths of God's word are unfathomable, its wisdom inscrutable and infinite, without beginning and without end, its fund of knowledge a perpetual fountain of truth, its presence ever abiding, and its beauty ineffable. So, the pearl of a great price is exalted by the truth concerning the judgment and the harvest, as it was revealed in fourfold view. And what is the fourfold view? In page 5, in track number 3, saying the judgment and the harvest in testimony, or in testimony of the prophets, parable, and ceremony. So, in this reading, there are only threefold view mentioned. The first is the testimony of the prophets. Second, the parable of Jesus Christ. And third, the ceremonial harvest. Now let us read again, track number 3, page 88. Reading the upper paragraph, saying, now we see that by testimony of prophets, by parable, and by ceremonial type, God has wrought the towering structure of fact that, number 1, the judgment is the harvest, the separation of the tares from the wheat, the end of the world. So that is the first view. That second, the judgment, the harvest, embraces two phases, two periods. The former for the dead, the latter for the living. That third, the one takes place according to the records in the books in the heavenly sanctuary, whereas as the other takes place simultaneously in the church on earth and in the books in heaven. That number 4, the very fact that the subject is now being revealed in its fullness testifies that we are just on the verge of passing out of the former and into the latter phase and period, and that we are therefore living in the last days of earth's history. Accordingly, in such enumeration, the final view, the fourth one, is at the time when the plan of redemption will be revealed in its fullness. And we already proven with absolute fact that whatever truths concerning the plan of salvation, concerning the plan of redemption, it will be completely unfolded to the people whom it was originally designed, especially designed, and they are the saints that will no longer to taste death. Now let us elaborate one by one these four enumerations as stated, the fourfold view, brothers and sisters, by which the pearl of a great price is exalted by this revelation. I remember the statement in 1TG number 18 on page 20. It says here, solemn times we have come to, brother, sister. It says here, solemn times we have come to, brother, sister. Now is the time to put on the white garment. Now is the time to buy the field with the great treasure and the pearl of great price. Shall you, shall I, is the great question that we must quickly settle without others people's influence or interference. 1TG number 18, pages 20 and page 21. In 2TG number 11, on page, it says here, page 6, 2TG number 11, page 6, mustard seed, being the smallest of all seeds, this parable shows that which is to start the kingdom will be very insignificant, contrary to all human expectation. Nevertheless, like the mustard plant becomes the biggest of all herbs, so the kingdom shall grow and become the greatest of all kingdoms. This being contrary to all human planning, it is but natural that those who are like Nicodemus and continue to be ashamed to be identified with something that is unpopular, hated, and insignificant will, as a result, be left out of the kingdom. 2TG number 11 on page 6. Now let us try now to elaborate one by one the fourfold view of the plan of redemption as stated in tract number 3 on page 88. Number 1, it says, the judgment is the harvest. And then it says, the separation of the tares from the wheat, the end of the world. So that is the first view of the plan of redemption. The separation of the tares from among the wheat. Now, let us now read some testimony of the prophet, which is the Shepherd's Rod Publications. I would like to read Answerer. Let me read to you. Answerer number 1 on page 18. It says, do the bad along with the good are still coming, for we are yet in the period in which the wheat and the tares, the good and the bad fish, commingle. Answerer number 1, page 18. It was written in 1944. And in 1944, the testimony of the prophet plainly declaring that they were still living in a period of time by which the divine decree are still binding, saying, let the wheat and the tares commingle together. The Shepherd's Rod declared clearly, we are still living in a period of time by which the wheat and the tares are still commingled. Now, I would like to read tract number 3 on page 66. So let's read tract number 3 on page 66. It says, as the word until means up to, the tares are therefore to be gathered out not before or after the harvest, but at the beginning of it. Track number 3, page 66, the Shepherd's Rod says that the plain words of Jesus Christ in Matthew 13, verse 30, saying, "Let the wheat and the tares commingle together until the harvest." It did not say that the wheat and the tares will be commingled forever, but only until the harvest. Commingled where? In the field. And the field represents the church, according to Christ's object lesson, page 70. And the Shepherd's Rod declared here in 1TG 21, page 3, it says, "No matter how great and how effective a revival and reformation, even God Himself may launch in His church, the Scriptures make it plain that both the sinners and the saints will be in the church until the harvest. No one need brag that the members of His church are all saints, that they are all of one accord. If they really are of one accord, then it must be that they are all tares, that there is no saint among them. That church, for a certainty, is not the church of which Christ speaks in His Word. If anything is plain in the Bible, this one thing is." 1TG number 21, page 3. Now, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, the plan of redemption is revealed in fourfold view. And at the time when the plan of redemption is revealed in fourfold view, according to track number 3, page 88, that is the time that the pearl of a great price is exalted. And what is the pearl of a great price? That is concerning the kingdom of Christ. And according to the parable of Jesus Christ, the kingdom of Christ was illustrated by the mustard seed. For example, I would like to make a simple illustration. This is the field by which the mustard seed was planted. So the mustard seed was still in the bottom of the soil. But when the plan of redemption is completely unfolded in fourfold view, that is the time by which the mustard seed began to come out from the soil, exalted. Or in other words, you can begin to view the mustard seed coming out from the soil. At the time when the plan of redemption is revealed in its fullness, in fourfold view, according to the Shepherd's Rod. Now, we are now trying to elaborate one by one the 4 enumerations recorded in track number 3, page 88. If at this time we could be able to unlock the great treasure house of truth revealed in fourfold view, then for sure, this is the predicted time, predicted by the voice of inspiration. Now, beginning on the first view, saying that the judgment is the harvest. The judgment is the harvest. And then it says, it is concerning the separation of the tares from the wheat, the end of the world. Now, according to the parable of Jesus Christ pronounced a divine decree that the wheat and the tares must be commingled in the church, not forever. There is a divinely appointed time by which the tares must be taken out from the field, from the church. And what is the appointed time? According to track number 3, page 66. The commencement of the harvest. The Shepherd's Rod declared that the word until, the very word of Jesus Christ, that the wheat and the tares must be commingled, not forever, but only up to, because accordingly, track number 3, page 66, the word until, meaning up to the commencement of the harvest. So, the subject concerning the wave sheep and the wave loaves can never be comprehended unless we have a clear conception concerning the parable of the harvest. And the shepherd's rod also declared clearly that the subject concerning the 5 symbolical months can also never be understood unless we will connect it to the subject, the parable of the harvest. Now, I would like to read again the statement in track number 5, page 74, saying, "The fact too that the trumpets are figurative is another evidence that these 5 months are figurative time. But why should this period in which the locusts, the Christians, have power to torment men be limited to 5 months? It will be noted that the 144,000 are called the first fruits, denoting that they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest, the commencement of the time to separate the tares from the wheat. To the parable of the harvest, then we must go for the full explanation of the 5 months period. Now, accordingly, in this paragraph, the 5 months period, the 5 figurative months, can never be understood unless we will have a complete understanding concerning to the parable of the harvest, by which the full explanation of the 5 figurative months period is found in the subject, the parable of the harvest, by which accordingly the 144,000 living saints are sealed at the beginning of the harvest, by which it says the commencement of that beginning of the harvest is the time to separate the tares from the wheat. The commencement of the time to separate the tares from the wheat. So it is closely connected to the first enumeration in track number 3, page 88. Now, I would like to read again the statement. Track number 3, page 88. The judgment is the harvest, the separation of the tares from the wheat, the end of the world. That is the first enumeration. And we will prove to you that enumeration number 1, enumeration number 2, enumeration number 3 is arranged in its perfect order, one following the other. Although enumeration number 4 is not pointing to the chronological order of events, but rather is telling you and I that when this threefold enumeration will be completely unfolded, that is the emphasis of enumeration number 4, saying the very fact that the subject is now being revealed in its fullness. What subject? The subject concerning the judgment and the harvest, by which the judgment, which is also called the harvest, is enumerated in 3 consecutive order. Therefore, enumeration number 4 is telling you and I that at the time when such subject will be revealed in its fullness, it testifies that we are just on the very verge of passing out of the former and into the latter phase and period. So what is the latter phase and period, brothers and sisters? Of course, it must be in enumeration number 3, but the last description on enumeration number 3. What is the last description in enumeration number 3? We will know it as we are now to proceed how this very important subject is revealed in its fullness. Now let us go back again to enumeration number 1. What is enumeration number 1? It is the beginning of the harvest. Harvest, according to answerer number 2, page 36. It says, it shows, answerer number 2, page 36. It shows that the harvest is a period of time having a beginning and ending, and that during its time, men are saved. Answerer number 2, page 36. Now, let us try now to explain this very important subject. 1844, because that is the commencement of the investigative judgment of the dead. Now we have 1844. Our subject is concerning the harvest. And harvest, according to our reading in answerer number 2, page 36, it is a period of time having a beginning and ending. So we have now two periods. The harvest is divided into two phases. For example, this is the entire period of the harvest. So that is the entire period of the harvest. But it is divided into two. This period is the beginning. This period is ending. We know the word beginning, it is a noun. It is a period of time. It is a gerund, a verb in ing form, meaning progressive. So the word beginning is a period of time. The beginning, there must be commencement and there must be end, or commencement and close. So when the period of the harvest, which is called beginning, is closed, then commence the second phase, ending. So the close of the beginning is the commencement of the ending. And then we have here, close. Jeremiah 8 verse 20. Jeremiah 8 verse 20 must be to the time when both the two phases of the period of the harvest is completely ended, saying the harvest is past. The summer is ended and we are not saved. Now let us read that portion, and I would like to read White House Recruiter on page 37 and page 38. It says here, tragically, those who now fail to fill their vessels, Matthew 25 verse 1 to 4, with this extra oil, the additional truth, that of the judgment of the living, flowing from the golden bowl, Zechariah 4, will finally see their lamps flicker out forever like a guttered candle. Oh, in what consternation! Then will they search for the precious golden oil, as with what infinitely greater anxiety than they now search for gold and for prestige. But alas, then like Esau, they seek it carefully with theirs. They shall find no place of repentance. They purchase their oil too late. The door is closed when they reach it, and to their frantic knocking at it comes the terrifying reply, I never know you. Matthew 7 verse 23. Then is the harvest of the first fruits past, the fruits garnered in, and the tares shut out unto destruction. There in agony, to wail and to gnash their teeth. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. White House Recruiter, page 37 and page 38. So the voice of inspiration says, then is the harvest of the first fruits past. So Jeremiah 8:20 must be fulfilled when the wicked, with utter disappointment, they will cry out bitterly that they forever lost salvation. At the time when the period specified by the harvest is ended. And for sure, they must be the people who neglected to search this pearl of a great price. And they don't bother themselves. But at the time when everything is too late, that is the time by which they began to search, brothers and sisters. And sad to say, apology and forgive me if it is not appropriate, but for me, it is even very sad when in reality, Shepherd's Rod believers are in a position, in a super Laodicean spirit, because they thought, being a Shepherd's Rod believer, they were very confident that they knew everything, my dear brothers and sisters. While in reality, Satan winks their ignorance concerning the plan of redemption revealed in the sanctuary construction and service. As stated in 2SR page 187, that the plan of salvation is revealed through sanctuary construction and service. And I do fully believe that this reading is pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Saying here in 2SR page 92, it is true that people like to be deceived, flattering themselves that they are on the way to heaven, while Satan winks at their ignorance Satan winks at their ignorance concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, because the Shepherd's Rod says in White House Recruiter, page 32, there is no more damaging darkness than Satan could seek God's people in ignorance concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary while their case is pending. None, absolutely none. Because according to track number 3, page 54, for when a person's case is pending and we are unaware of the fact, we cannot stand when our case will be investigated. Now let us go back to enumeration number 1. Brothers and sisters, do we know when does the harvest will commence? Brothers and sisters, the harvest is divided into 2 sections. The harvest that pertains to the dead and the harvest that pertains to the living. And the harvest that pertains to the dead is the one that commenced in October 22, 1844. But concerning the harvest that pertains to the living, it did not commence in the days of Bethlehem. The Shepherd's Rod declared clearly in 1 TG number 48 on page 20. Let me read to you. 1 TG number 48, page 20, it says, Saint and sinner during the judgment for the living will no longer be commingled. Saint and sinner during the judgment for the living will no longer be commingled. B.T. Hotep testified in 1944 that they were still living in a period of time by which the wheat and the tares are still commingled. And it is verified in the statement in Answerer number 2, page 93, saying, obvious is this fact because the nations among themselves have always been angry and are angry even today, although we are still in the time of the judgment of the dead. So that is the testimony of the prophet, plainly telling you and I that they were still living in the time of the judgment of the dead. Now, the Shepherd's Rod plainly told us, brothers and sisters, that in the period by which the wheat and the tares are commingled, in 1 TG 21, page 3, there is no such prediction that God's people will arrive into one accord. And the Shepherd's Rod says that if there is a group of people saying that they are of one accord, then they must all be tares. There is no saint among them. And for sure, that church cannot be the church recognized by Jesus Christ as His. Or in other words, it is decreed by God that there should be no separation of tares and wheat, or wheat and tares, in the period prior to the harvest. Because the divine decree declared clearly that such separation must be at the commencement of the harvest. Now here in 2 TG 46, on page 26, 2 TG 46, it says here, long before these sad conditions developed, the Lord forewarned that men would fall asleep and let the devil sow his tails among the wheat. What does it mean by the word let? The word let meaning allowed it to be so. For example, here in the old symbolic code, 2 symbolic code number 9 on page 2, it says, the term let means to allow it to be so. 2 symbolic code number 9, page 2. 2 symbolic code number 9, page 2, saying the term let meaning allowed it to be so. Or it was allowed by God. It was permitted by God. So it says here, long before, reading 2 TG 46, page 26, it says, long before these sad conditions developed, the Lord forewarned that men would fall asleep and let the devil sow his tares among the wheat. Matthew 13, verse 25 and 28. For how long? The question is, for how long? Is it forever? No. Only until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, saith the Lord, I will say to the reapers, gather ye first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Matthew 13, verse 30. Now, that is very plain. It says, for how long does the tares and the wheat are commingled together? Until the harvest. But the harvest is a period of time, having a beginning and ending. And secondly, the harvest is in two sections. The harvest that pertains to the dead and the harvest that pertains to the living. Now, there is no possibility that we could comprehend the harvest that pertains to the living unless we have a complete understanding concerning the harvest that pertains to the dead. Now let us focus first to the harvest that pertains to the dead, then to the harvest that pertains to the living. Now I would like to read 2TG number 11 on page 12 and page 13, saying, for example, after the harvest, investigative judgment of the dead is past. Other truths, even more important, must be introduced for the harvest of the living. I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves, concerning those whose own cases are to be weighed in the balances, those who personally are to be judged either as wheat or as tares, either as good fish or as bad fish. So the voice of inspiration says that there are two harvests, the harvest that pertains to the dead and the harvest that pertains to the living. But the harvest that pertains to the living, brothers and sisters, can never be understood not until the harvest that pertains to the dead is past. Or in other words, it says the truths concerning the harvest that pertains to the living must be introduced after the judgment of the dead is past. That is the statement here in 2TG number 11, page 12 and 13. And without any doubts, the truth concerning the judgment or the harvest that pertains to the living, it must be introduced to the living themselves. And it reminds us again and again that the messenger, brothers and sisters, is not sent by God to explain the judgment. It says here in General Conference is special, page 39, saying the angel, meaning the messenger, is not sent. General Conference is special. The angel is not sent particularly to explain what the judgment does to the dead, but what it is to do to the living. And then it says, so we see that the more we consider the subject, the more obvious becomes the truth that the third angel's message in its final phase is the judgment for the living, the harvest. Plainly then, the work of Elijah is to give light on the judgment for the living. The General Conference is special, page 39 and page 40. Now, let us go back again, brothers and sisters. The parable of the wheat and the tares. I would like to read this reading in 2TG, number 42. It says here, 2TG number 42, page 31. It says, in the parables, however, Jesus explains the cleansing of the sanctuary thus: let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Here it is made clear that in this instance, the wicked among the righteous are likened to tares, and the time of the cleansing itself, the judgment, is likened to a harvest, but that the cleansing itself is likened to a separation of wheat and tares. Now, since the shepherd's rod used the term, the plan of redemption is revealed in its fullness according to track number 3, page 88, then we need to explain it in its fullness, gradually, to have a full understanding concerning the harvest. Now, according to the shepherd's rod, brothers and sisters, ponder deeply because it is very important subject. The gospel history is divided into 3 periods: sowing, growing, and harvest. But we are focusing our attention to the subject, the harvest, brothers and sisters. Now, concerning the harvest, brothers and sisters, it is divided into two separation. The first section of separation, it is the tares that had been taken out from among the wheat, or it is the wicked that had been taken out from among the righteous. That is called the first section of separation. And the second section is that it is the wheat that had been taken out from among the tares, or the righteous had been taken out from among the wicked. But at this time, we will focus our attention first on the first section, by which it is the wicked that had been taken out from among the righteous. And in the first section, let us focus first to the first phase of the judgment that pertains to the dead. The first section of the separation under the first phase of the judgment that pertains to the dead. Now, the shepherd's rod plainly told us that the parable of Jesus Christ in Matthew 13, verse 30, it is pointing to the cleansing of the sanctuary. 2TG 42, page 31. Right? It says that in the parables, however, Jesus explains the cleansing of the sanctuary thus in Matthew 13, verse 30. So the commencement of the harvest pertains to the dead, commenced in 1844, which is the cleansing of the sanctuary. Now let me read to you in track number 3, page 43. In both of these parables, Christ is sounding the forewarning that the investigative judgment will take place in the time called harvest, which is the end of the world, the time in which the 2,300 days culminate. Now, when does the 2,300 days culminate? It was ended in October 22, 1844. So that is the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary. Therefore, the statement, until the harvest, the tares are taken out from among the wheat, can be none other than the names of the wicked are blotted out from the books of life. Now, let us read track number 3, pages 41 and page 42. It says, counting forward 2,300 years from October 457 BC, the terminus is October 1844 AD. And as the angel said, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. The cleansing must thence have commenced in 1844. It says, the very year in which, for the first time in history, the first angel's message rang forth the proclamation, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come. Revelation 14, verse 7, Daniel 7, verse 9 and 10. The time that the great judge and the heavenly tribunal sit in judgment to separate the bad from the good, that is, to blot from the book of life the names of those who have entered the service of Christ but have not endured to the end. So the voice of inspiration says, brothers and sisters, to blot from the book of life the names of those who have entered the service of Christ but have not endured to the end. We would focus only our explanation to the first proceeding because the procedure is still the same from the commencement down to the end. There is only one method that had been employed by God in the plan of redemption pertaining to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. So we'll explain only the first proceeding, more particularly to the first seal. Now, according to the shepherd's rod, who will blot out the names of the wicked? it is the angels. God will be the one to command the angels to gather the tails, to take out the tails. But accordingly, it is Jesus Christ who will blot first the name. For example, here in track number 3, it says here, track number 3, page 73, the day in which the Lord will blot from His book the names of all sinners. So it is the Lord Himself will blot. Now, I would like to show an example. This is the first section, because the cleansing of the sanctuary is divided into 7 sections because there are 7 seals. This is the first section, the first seal. We already explained on our subject concerning the Bible calendar. In reality, October 22, 1844, in Bible calendar, this is October 11, 1843, the commencement of the investigative judgment of the dead, by which the very first work is to blot, brothers and sisters, to blot the names. For example, Jesus Christ blotted the names. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, for example, this name is righteous. Then this name is wicked. Then Jesus Christ will blot this name. Then, for example, this name is also wicked. Then Jesus Christ will blot. But the name still here. And who will blot out the name? The angels. And the names that they will blot out are the names that had been blotted by Jesus Christ. So in that illustration, there is no possibility that the angel will be mistaken, because the angel has no capacity to know who are the wheat and who are the tares. Only Jesus Christ have such a prerogative to know who are they the wheat and who are they the tares. So before the angels will blot out all the names of the wicked in the Lamb's book of life, Jesus Christ must be the first one to blot first the names of the wicked, whose names to be blotted out by the angels. And after Jesus Christ will finish His work, blotting the names of all the wicked, then Jesus Christ will give the divine command to the angels assigned by God to blot out the names of the wicked, whose names were already blotted. Or in other words, at the time when the names are blotted by Jesus Christ, that is already destined for blotting out. Now, let us proceed, brothers and sisters. I know that it is a very broad subject, but I'm trying my best to shorten our study. Now, let us go back again to enumeration number 1. In enumeration number 1 is closely connected to enumeration number 2, saying, the judgment, the harvest, embraces 2 phases, 2 periods. The former for the dead, the latter for the living. Enumeration number 2, brothers and sisters, is both pertaining to the bookwork proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. The very first aspect of the judgment, by which the first aspect of the judgment is bookwork, but divided into 2 periods. First for the dead, and then the latter for the living. Now let us read again the statement in answerer number 5, page 30. According to Jesus' parable, this work takes place in the time of harvest, the end of the world. Matthew 13, verse 30 and 40. And as the congregation of the dead, as well as the congregation of the living, are commingled with the good and the bad, the judgment takes place among both. First among the dead, then among the living. In the judgment, the decision is made as to who are worthy of eternal life and who of eternal death, who are to come up in the first resurrection and who in the second, also are to be translated when Jesus comes, and who are to perish at the brightness of His coming. This is the first aspect of the judgment, and being only a bookwork, a work that does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. It takes place in heaven. What is the first aspect of the judgment? Bookwork. But accordingly, such bookwork that pertains to the congregation of the living must be after the separation of the congregation of the dead is finished. And we repeated several times that this statement in 2SR 164 is pointing to the bookwork blotting out of names. Now, let us read again 2SR 164. It says, when the judgment opened in 1844, as previously explained, the investigation began with the dead, and when that part of the work is finished, then commences the judgment of the living. While the investigation for the congregation of the dead is in progress, there can be no separation among the congregation of the living. But when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth, sounding of the trumpet, urging everyone to lay hold on the Lamb of God, which is Jesus Christ, by which only can he in figure come to the sanctuary, confess his sin, and secure his life. Unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth while the judgment for the living is in session. Neither would such judgment be legal or just. He who fails to respond to the heavenly summons will be left without the seal or covering of God, and therefore must be cut off from among his people, as prefigured by the services in the typical Day of Atonement. So the term cut off in that paragraph cannot be the day of slaughtering, because the day of slaughtering will take place on the Passover week, 2SR 216. But that paragraph, the term cut off, is pointing to the Day of Atonement. And the term cut off never been applied to the blotting out of sins. The term cut off must be applied only to the blotting out of names. So in that reading, my dear brothers and sisters, the Voice of Inspiration says that while the blotting out of names that pertains to the congregation of the dead is still unfinished, there would be no blotting out of names in the congregation that pertains to the living. But when the blotting out of names in the congregation that pertains to the dead is finished, it says there must be a message of present truth. And what is the message of present truth? If you will read that paragraph in 2SR 164, the very first message of present truth is to inform the saints, candidates to be among the living saints, to inform them that their judgment is pending, that we are now the one that had been weighed in the balances in the heavenly sanctuary. And those who fail to respond to that message, heavenly summons, they will be left without the seal of the living God. And they will be among those names that will be cut off, those names that will be removed, blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life. And the very fact that it was revealed this year, plainly indicating that the blotting out of names under the congregation of the dead was completely finished, brothers and sisters. And it is closely connected to the subject, the wave ship and the wave lobes. And to repeat again, that subject concerning the wave ship and the wave lobes, brothers and sisters, can never be understood unless we have a clear conception, the entire proceedings that occurred in the heavenly sanctuary. The statement in track number 15 saying on page, I would like to read the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod saying on page 13, both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene, whereas John was healed to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceeding from start to finish. That statement can be easily understood that if the entire book of Revelation is completely unfolded, that is pertaining to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary from start to finish. The only prophet recorded in the Bible, as stated by the Shepherd's Rod, by which he had been given the privilege to show the whole proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary from start to finish. That is John the Beloved, the book of Revelation. And the mere fact, according to 2 TJ 12:30, that the book of Revelation is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living, plainly indicating that the divinely appointed time by which the whole proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary will be bestowed by God to the people in the last generation of men. You and I, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, let us now go back again to the statement, enumeration number 1, the separation of the tails from the wheat. I would like to read to you tract number 15. Here in tract number 15, on page 29, it says, so in the great day of final atonement, so let us distinctly separate. The very first atonement occurred in October 10, 1844, Bible calendar. In Gregorian, that is October 16, 1845. October 22, 1844. In Bible calendar, that was October 11, 1843. That is investigative judgment. The sins of the righteous can never be blotted out, not until after investigation. Or it is out of procedure that the sins will be blotted out. Then investigation. No. Investigation will come first, and those who pass such investigation, they will be the very first one whose sins are to be blotted out. Or in other words, from October 11 to October 9, October 11, 1843 to October 9, 1844, 359 days, it is called investigation. And those who pass such investigation, in October 10, on the Day of Atonement, their sins will be blotted out. Now, let us read again the statement here in tract number 15, page 29, saying, so in the great day of final atonement, of course, the word final, that is the last atonement, and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, the time to separate the tails from the wheat, the bad fish from the good, from among both the dead and the living, the harvest. Now, brothers and sisters, there are only two sittings. The first sitting is pertaining to the dead. The second sitting is pertaining to the living. We already read in 2SR 164 that there would be no separation among the congregation of the living, not until the separation among the congregation of the dead is finished. But while it is in progress, there could be no separation among the congregation of the living. But the Sharper's Rod says in 2 TG 11, page 12 and 13, saying that when the investigative judgment of the dead is passed, other truths must be introduced, the harvest of the living. And it is illogical that such subject concerning the harvest that pertains to the living will be introduced when probation closes, because the harvest itself is provisionary time. So that statement in 2 TG 11, page 12 and 13, saying that when the congregation of the dead, the work of separation is finished, then of course, the next separation must be the congregation that pertains to the living. So to have a clear conception, brothers and sisters, and we will explain it later, the commencement of the cleansing is October 22, 1844. But in Bible calendar, that is October 11, 1843. So the very first cleansing is in October 10, 1844, Bible calendar. But in Gregorian, that is October 16, 1845. What is the infallible fruit that we could rest assured that the last day of atonement is the last day of atonement that pertains to the dead? That was October 10, 2021 in Bible calendar. But in Gregorian, that is April 1, 2020. That is already in the past. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we began introducing this message on April 2, 2020 that is Gregorian, but in Bible calendar, that is October 11, 2021. The commencement of the investigative judgment for the living.
That is the commencement of the investigative judgment for the living. And we would like to show to you. So this is the commencement of the investigative judgment for the living. And the blotting out of names must be on October 10, 2022 in Bible calendar. But in Gregorian calendar, that is March 27, 2021. This coming March 27, 2021 in Bible calendar, that is October 10, 2022. That is the blotting out of names among the congregation that pertains to the living. And the only names that will be left in the congregation among the living is the 144,000 living saints, brothers and sisters. Now, our duty is to try our very best with the help of the Lord that was given unto us, that if possible, we could be able to introduce to you this subject in a more comprehensible manner. But, brothers and sisters, we will be doing our best, but we cannot do anything beyond our capacity. And whatever thing which is beyond our capacity, I do fully believe that the rest must be, the responsibility is of God. Because if this message that we are proclaiming is of God, then the prerogative to let the people understand does not belong to us. It belongs to God. But I do fully believe, brothers and sisters, with the passages recorded in the Shepherd's Rod. For example, it says here, I would like to read, 2SR page 90. There could be nothing more pleasing to God than for one of His children to ask in sincerity the way of truth. Therefore, such a one shall not be left in darkness. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Matthew 7 verse 7. If people care to find the truth, it can easily be done. But the fact of the matter is that they do not care. People would rather be deceived than to ask God to show them His truth. 2SR page 90. But brothers and sisters, if you look at the past generations, for example, when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, did the messenger explain to them why God will destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? No explanation ever given. But whether they will believe it or not, the message was proclaimed to them. Now, for example, Jonah. When Jonah warned the inhabitants of the Nineveh, did he explain to them why that God would destroy Nineveh? But thank God, the entire inhabitants repented. Now, brothers and sisters, it is even more favorable to us in this generation. We are trying to the utmost of our ability, in sincerity and in honesty. We are studying every day, brothers and sisters, and praying to God that if possible, we could be able to explain this very important subject in a more comprehensible manner, that if possible, the people will not be prejudiced. But that's all that we could do. After we did all we could, we will place into the hands of God the rest. The responsibility is entirely of God, my dear brothers and sisters. So, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, whether you believe it or not, the truth of the matter will never be changed. This coming Day of Atonement is the blotting out of names. Remember the Shepherd's Rod reminding us in track number 5, saying that the same as in the day of Galileo Galilei, when he discovered that the earth was round. It says, page 85, once men fought the astronomical finding of Galileo, they even forced him to recant his position that the earth was round. But their fighting the truth did not make the earth flat. Likewise, anyone's fighting against the clear-cut evidences that Revelation 9 verse 15 did not meet its fulfillment in 1840, or trying to obscure the light on any other Bible truth will in no way darken or doom it, but only darken and doom himself. Now, for example, brothers and sisters, the very message that we are now proclaiming to you, to all the rest who are listening to this message. First, if you will not listen to this message, brothers and sisters, we've done our part. By proclaiming this message, we will no longer be held responsible whatever may happen because we've done our part. We proclaim the message every day. If you will not believe this message, brothers and sisters, we've done our part. Now, to repeat again, we will only be explaining the things that had been committed unto us by God that rest our capacity. But everything that is beyond our capacity, brothers and sisters, it belongs all to our Almighty God. Now, one of the infallible proof that we could show to you, how could we rest assured, brothers and sisters, that this is the commencement of the judgment for the living and this coming day of atonement is the blotting out of names under the congregation of the living. Now, we will introduce to you now because the voice of inspiration says other truths must be introduced. I would like to read that statement again. In 2TG number 11, page 13, it says, for example, after the harvest, investigative judgment of the dead is past. It did not say, for example, after the harvest, investigative judgment of the dead was past. No. The linking verb use is present tense, meaning just presently finished. The last day of atonement. That is the time that you could apply. For example, brothers and sisters, to repeat again, in October 10, 2021, Bible calendar, and in Gregorian calendar, that is April 1, 2020. This is the last and final day of atonement, the blotting out of names under the congregation that pertains to the dead. Therefore, the investigative judgment of the dead is past. Brothers and sisters, meaning presently finished, the last day of atonement. And in October 11, 2021 Bible calendar, in Gregorian, that is April 2, 2020, the investigative judgment for the living begins. It is now in progress. Now we will try our best to introduce to you, brothers and sisters. But in Testimonies Volume 7, I would like to read to you in Testimonies Volume 7. In Testimonies Volume 7, on page, it says, page 35, do not feel that the responsibility rests upon you to convict and convert the hearers. So I would like to read this. Volume 7, page 35. Do not feel that the responsibility rests upon you to convict and convert the hearers. The power of God alone can soften the hearts of the people. You are to hold forth the word of life, that all may have an opportunity of receiving the truth if they will. If they turn from the truth of heavenly origin, it will be their condemnation. In Volume 7, 159, I would like to read Testimonies for the Church, Volume 7, page 159. The divine teacher says, my spirit alone is competent to teach and to convict of sin. Externals make only a temporary impression upon the mind. I will enforce truth on the conscience, and men shall be my witnesses throughout the world, asserting my claims on man's time, his money, his intellect. All this I purchased on the cross of Calvary. Use my entrusted talents to proclaim the truth in its simplicity. Let the gospel be sent to all parts of the world, awakening burdened souls to inquire, what must I do to be saved? Volume 7, page 159. And you know, I really feel this reading in Volume 7, page 265. Let me read to you. Saying, it requires a vast amount of time and labor to convince one's soul in regard to the special truths for this time. But the fact is that the time is very short. We are proclaiming the message in an emergency. And the only way that it would lighten our load is only through faith, because faith is invincible. In the great controversy, I would like to read that statement. in the great controversy, saying that 609 and 610. So it says, brethren, the Lord gives a special truth for the people in an emergency. And I do fully believe that that statement is even more applied this year because the time is in reality is very short. What if you are living in the days of Jonah? But Jonah preached within 40 days. 40 days from now, Nineveh will be destroyed. And we are also now coming face to face the nearness of this event, the Day of Atonement, the blotting out of names. And the very message that I'm trying to introduce, according to this reading in 2TG 11, page 13, saying, other truths, even more important, must be introduced. I am now introducing to you this very important truth, the blotting out of names that pertains to the living. I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves, concerning those whose own cases are to be weighed in the balances, those who personally are to be judged either as wheat or as tares, either as good fish or as bad fish. 2TG number 11, page 13. Now, I would like to introduce to you, and I think this one is infallible because it is God who controlled the days, the weeks, the months, and the years. Now let us read again the statement so let me read to you. It says here, so let us read again the statement. I am inclined to believe that those who watch for the day and hour will understand both before they arrive. Paul says, Hebrew chapter 10 verse 25, exhorting one another and so much the more as ye see the day approaching, which seems to imply that it may be seen before it actually arrives. Our Lord says, Revelation 3 verse 3, if therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on you as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Which implies that if we will watch, we shall know what hour. It appears to me probable that the blowing of trumpets in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, Leviticus 23 verse 24. Now let us read Leviticus 23 verse 24. Leviticus 23 on verse 24. It says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. Leviticus 23 verse 24. Now, brothers and sisters, in reality, this is a very broad subject and it is closely connected to the trumpet study because it's pointing to the blowing of the trumpets. There are 10 days blowing of trumpets. Now, it says here, brothers and sisters, it appears to me probable that the blowing of trumpets in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, Leviticus 23 verse 24, is to be understood as a type of something that is to occur on that day, which will be a signal to those who are watching to show them that the 7th month has commenced. Brethren, this reading cannot be applied in reality, or it is even more applied in the time when the Bible calendar was lost, or when God's people had no more knowledge concerning the Bible calendar. Because it is illogical that you will sound the trumpets telling the people that, for example, you will say, it is October 1, but the Bible calendar are still in existence. Then the people will say, yes, this is October 1. Everybody knew. But the statement is pointing to the time in our day. The statement says in our day, when the Bible calendar is no longer familiar with the people of God, that it is in absolute importance to tell them that that date in Gregorian calendar, in reality, is October 1 in the Bible. That's what it means by this reading. Now, I would like to read again, saying, it appears to me probable that the blowing of trumpets in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, Leviticus 23:24, is to be understood as a type of something that is to occur on that day, which will be a signal to those who are watching to show them that the seventh month has commenced. It may be the literal sounding of the seventh trumpet. If not that, something that God's people who are watching will understand and then know for a certainty when the 10th day is. For certainty, meaning very certain. You are so sure that that is October 10. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Then it says, quoting Psalms 81 verse 3, blow up the trumpet in the new moon. Then it says, the first day of the seventh month in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. I think that blowing of trumpets means something that we shall very soon understand. The Lord help us to stand on our watchtower. Now, let us now ponder deeply, brethren, how God's people in 1844 very certain that October 22, according to their understanding, that is October 10. But in reality, that is October 10 in heaven, but that is October 11 on earth. Because the focal point is in heaven, not on earth. And the sign that was given by God, according to this reading, is the new moon. Now let us look at the historical event, October 1844. When does the new moon appear? Let us look at, brothers and sisters, because this proves it is infallible. So the new moon appeared in October 11. So let us now place calendar, Gregorian calendar, 1844, October. 1844, October. Remember, the new moon appeared in 1844, in October 11, Gregorian calendar. 1844. So this is the Gregorian calendar. So October 11. So we have 11. So this is, you see, brothers and sisters, then October 12 must be in Bible calendar. This is October 1. Then we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Therefore, it is October 11. But in heaven, this is October 10. Now, brothers and sisters, the sign that was given by God is the new moon. The new moon appeared in October 11. So this is the commencement of the blowing of the trumpets. Of course, brothers and sisters, if you will blow the trumpet, it must be blown before the commencement of the day of the commencement of October 1, to inform them that tomorrow is October 1. So the new moon is the sign that was given by God. The new moon appeared in 1844 in October 11. Therefore, October 11 must be September 30 in Bible calendar. And you can trace that from crucifixion to this time, brothers and sisters. Therefore, October 12 is October 1, then it is October 11. Therefore, Jesus Christ entered into the heavenly sanctuary in the most holy place at midnight in October 21, which is already a part of 22, midnight. He entered into the most holy place in October 21, midnight, which is already October 22. And that is Tuesday. Tuesday, brothers and sisters. Why is it that Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place on Tuesday? Adam and Eve were fallen into sin in 3974. And 3974 BC is pattern number 6. And now we will continue that subject, brothers and sisters, in our next episode. But to repeat again, brethren, seldom, or for example, I would like to read to you in 13 Symbolic Code 5 and 6. 13 Symbolic Code 5 and 6 on page 31. Though these statements may sound impressive, their substance is the stuff of tinsel. The new moon of the first day of the first year in the 3-year cycle does not always come on Wednesday, as he says it does. The World Almanac reveals that over a period of 25 years, only 3 times did a new moon fall on Wednesday in the month of March, the season of 3-year cycle. First in 1928, March 21. Then second in 1948, March 10. And third in 1951, March 7. So 1928, March 21, that is Wednesday, the new moon appeared. 1948, that is March 10, the new moon appeared Wednesday. Then 1951, March 7, the new moon appeared Wednesday. Only 3 times according to the historical event. But concerning the new moon that will appear, brothers and sisters, on October 1, by which October 10 will fall on Wednesday, not 25 years. It will take thousands of years. It will never be happen again. The infallible proof that had been given by God to us is the new moon. That from that new moon, when it will appear, that is October 1, and October 10 would fall on Wednesday. Why? Because that is the predicted event, the invisible coming of Jesus Christ. It would be on Wednesday, as stated by the shepherd's rod, brothers and sisters. So to repeat again, it is seldom, I would like to explain. There is only one pattern by which October 10 is Wednesday. October 10, Wednesday. There is only one pattern. And that is pattern number 1. Pattern number 1. Pattern number 1 will repeat again after 7 year cycle. Because there are only 7 days in 1 week. And October 10, 2021, that is pattern number 1. Pattern number 1. Right? This is Bible calendar. Of course, the next year, October 10, 2022, that is pattern number 2. What is pattern number 2? Pattern number 2, October 10, that would be, let me show to you. Pattern number 2, October 10, Saturday. That's pattern number 2. So that is Saturday. This one is Wednesday. Saturday. Then October 10, 2023, we're talking about Bible calendar. Pattern number 3. And pattern number 3, October 10, fall on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday. So it is Tuesday. Then October 10, 2024, that is pattern number 4. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it is Friday. Then October 10, 2025, that is pattern number 5. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So that must be Monday. Then October 10, 2026, that is pattern number 6. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that is Thursday. Then October 10, 2027, that is pattern number 7. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that is Sunday. Then of course, in October 10, 2028, go back to the same pattern again. Pattern number 1. So you will pass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cycles. Then after the 7 cycles, go back to the same pattern. October 1, fall on Wednesday. October 10 rather. October 10. Hope that I could be able to explain to you this very important infallible proof. Therefore, in every 7 year cycle, what is, for example, I would like to show to you. 1844, that is pattern number 5. That is pattern number 5. And we will show to you in another angle how we knew for certain that the calendar in 1844 in Bible calendar, that is pattern number 5. Hope God would help me to explain this subject. For example, October 22, 1844, this is Gregorian, right? Therefore, this Gregorian calendar, there must be definite date in Bible calendar, the equivalent of this Gregorian calendar 1844. Brothers and sisters, so what is the equivalent of October 22, 1844 in Bible calendar? What is the day of October 22? Tuesday, right? Tuesday. Now, let us now go to the pattern 7 patterns in October. Now, brothers and sisters, how could we be able to ascertain clearly October 22, 1844 in Bible calendar? Of course, first by computation. But computation is a very long method. But let us go to the Bible pattern. The Bible pattern, brothers and sisters, that match October 22, 1844 is only pattern number 5. But how could we sure also in another angle that 1844 is pattern number 5 by the subject 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine? Because type and antitype should exactly fits. When Jacob entered to Egypt, that is pattern number 5. Therefore, since according to the shepherds, the commencement of the denomination in 1845 typifies Jacob entering into Egypt. Brothers and sisters. Now, if you will look at pattern number 5, October 10, which fall on Monday, and October 22 is Tuesday. Therefore, this is October 11. Because October 10, in Bible calendar, that is pattern number 5, that is Monday. And the weekly cycle can never be changed. Or it had never been changed, never been altered. Therefore, October 11 or October 22, since it is Tuesday, then that is October 11, not October 10, brothers and sisters. Now, how could we rest assured, brethren, that April 1 is a day of atonement? That is by counting the days. It is simple. Of course, from one day of atonement, for example, October 10, this is an example, October 10, 27 AD to October 10, 28 AD, that is 360 days. From one day of atonement to another, that is 360 days. The Bible calendar contains only 360 days. We have proven that several times with absolute fact. So, we can rest assured the day of atonement by the number of days. By the number of days, brothers and sisters. Now, let us now count. From October 21, 1844, the duration time, to April 1, 2020, Gregorian calendar. October 21, 1844, to April 1, 2020. Brothers and sisters, that is calculator. Cannot be mistaken. This one, it is a calculator. Date-to-date calculator. So from October 21, 1844 to April 1, 2020, that is exactly 64,080 days, 178 years. So since that is exact, for example, we will multiply 178 times 360, 178 times 360. Of course, the answer is 64,080 days. So by counting the number of days, 100% April 1, 2020, brothers and sisters, that is the Day of Atonement. In Bible calendar, that is October 10. You see at the bottom, October 10, 2021. And that is pattern number 1, by which October 10 fall on Wednesday. And that is an infallible proof because it will take thousands of years, maybe 100,000 of years. It will never repeat again. If you will say 6,000 years, no, it will not repeat again. That October 1 is the time when the new moon appeared, and in October 10, fall on Wednesday. Okay, so we could send to you these evidences. Look at from 1844, new moon appeared in October 11. Now, in 1849, this is pattern number 3. So, pattern number 3, October 10 is Tuesday. You see, brothers and sisters? Yes, the new moon appeared on October 1 and October 10, but it is pattern number 3. October 10 is not Wednesday. Now, let us go to another. Here in 1879, that is pattern number 5. Then, let us, 1886, that is still pattern number 5. So, let us move forward. 1891, pattern number 3. Now, 1895, pattern number 1. But the fact is, the new moon appeared not in October 1. When does the new moon appeared? Let us go to 1896. So, in 1896, the new moon appeared in January 14. So, let us go to January 14 in Bible calendar, that is October 2. Therefore, it is not in October 1. Now, let us go to the next. That is pattern number 5. Then, pattern number 3. Pattern number 5. Then, continues. Then, it was only in 2020. Brothers and sisters, 2020. So, it is here in April 1, 2020 by which the new moon appeared in March 24, October 2, and then the Day of Atonement fall on 2021, October 10, 2021. In Bible calendar, it is April 1, 2020. From that time onwards, brethren, so it will take thousands of years that it will repeat again, brothers and sisters. That is why, to repeat, it is an infallible proof given in the Bible, as explained by the Spirit of prophecy, that the sign of that Day of Atonement is the new moon, brothers and sisters. the same in, do you have the comparison 1844 and 2020 new moon? That diagram, the new moon. I would like to make a comparison, but we have done a diagram. October 11, new moon. Here, March 24, new moon. So, let us count 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here, brothers and sisters, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, here 10. So here, April 1, the same with the commencement of the cleansing, October 10, that is October 21 in Gregorian, but the commencement of the cleansing occurred in October 22. The same in 2020, this is April 1, brothers and sisters, by which in Bible calendar it is 10, and this one is 11, April 2. That is 11. And we will continue that portion, brothers and sisters, in our next episode. And hoping God would help us. But we will prove to you in different angles this very important prophecy concerning the waving of the waving of the first fruits, because waveship is pertaining only to the first of the first fruits, but wave lobes is pertaining to the completion of the first fruit, according to the shepherd's rod. So we'll continue this subject on our next episode, and hoping the good Lord will bless us, brothers and sisters, and we'll explain it later, so that we could prepare everything to show you the exact diagram concerning this very important subject. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. Have a wonderful evening.